The judge said at the beginning of the presentations by all three attorneys, town council for Lauren Galvin, Frank DeLuna for Thayer Nursery, and Matthew Dunn. He said to all three attorneys before he started the proceeding, we all agree that there's some sort of protection under the Dover Amendment here, and they all agreed that it is. There was no detailed discussion of it.
Okay.
It happened, and town council agrees that.
Okay. We'll figure out the Dover Amendment. That's a legal issue, not for the building inspector. You have a question for the building inspector?
No, I may give a point of clarification if I was there.
Well, you can talk about, when it comes time for comment, you can talk about all you like about all the court proceedings.
Not in public comment.
What is your question to the building
I
inspector?
don't have any questions.
Okay, well, you know, there's going to be plenty of time for you to be heard on any issue you want to be heard on, as long as it's relevant to the hearing. Anyone else with a question to the building inspector?
I want to be clear that this is a relevant issue. I brought it up, and you're getting in my way, and I think that's not right.
Okay, any other questions for the building inspector? Okay, thank you, Mr. Prondak, for coming in.
Okay, thanks very much, folks.
Now, Mr. Barker, we're going to hear from you. We're going to go, because we started 15 minutes late, we're going to go until 8:15, and then we are going to do the Falcone matter.
Okay, I have a brief PowerPoint presentation. So, thank you for the opportunity to be here and present on behalf of Thayer Nursery. Ned Corcoran, attorney on behalf of Thayer. We, and I apologize for the late delivery on Tuesday of...
I have a question. Does anybody know where the remote is for?
It's either ground. I think it's on the ground.
I can do it with this. I can do it with this. Oh no, that's for that. We have boards.
There wasn't anything on the table.
We've got boards, we can use the boards, and they equate to a set of plans that were included in the packet that we delivered on Tuesday evening, the 10th. And I apologize for the late delivery. The current weather conditions contributed to some degree in the ability to produce that information. I think perhaps a couple of things. We have proposed, and I think for the purpose of this, it would be helpful to suggest what we propose as modifications to the proposed conditions plan. And then we can get into specifics about how to mitigate, what to do, what the conditions that we've suggested would be. I think I tried to do a much better job at sort of identifying, in accordance with the bylaw, how we would mitigate, how we would adjust, what we would do. So late last week, or over the weekend, Josh Oldfield met with Pam Lepore, who lives next door. And I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Pam, but that meeting was intended to at least commence a better set of communications about what and how this area that's called the land care yard would look like, how it would operate, and how it could be best mitigated with respect to the impacts on Ms. Lepore. There's no question that by proposing the relocation of the landscaping conditions in this area of the property, that we are moving them away from the area where they have historically been conducted and moving right here to the area that's proximate to Lepore's property. I would note that her house is somewhat distant, but I know that she has plans to build new and perhaps closer to the area in question. So, understanding that she still doesn't desire to see this, Josh and she talked about a number of conditions, I think some of which she was okay with, some of which she was not okay with. And as I understand them, basically as follows. One, the prior plan showed a clockwise, forward-only movement for trucks. I think that had significant concern in part because all of the trucks would be coming essentially within 15 or 20 feet of the property line. It was intended to do that so that we would minimize the backing of trucks, particularly as they were loading or unloading. But it certainly brings closer. And that includes large trucks which deliver firewood and trucks that deliver mostly landscaping, nursery materials, nursery product trees that are planted and transplanted come from across the country. They come on large trucks. And those trucks can be as tall as 12 to 13 feet. By changing that out and having those trucks sort of enter and back to a point that's further away from property, those larger trucks will no longer be visible if a fence is installed along here that is shorter than the height of those trucks. The proposal would then be that A, we're eliminating that forward movement. B, we're increasing the height of the fence that was previously proposed from 8 feet with no berm to 8 feet on top of a 1-foot berm, so essentially 9 feet. Sound attenuation in accordance with materials that I've provided from the sound engineer. And we can discuss if you have questions. And that the height of the only trucks that would be still coming around here periodically would be the diesel fuel delivery truck, which will park proximate to the shed where the diesel fuel is located. It will park in here. It has a hose long enough that can come without parking here. It could come around for the sake of moving out as opposed to backing and exiting the site. But those, as I understand it, those trucks are 9 feet tall, and they would be the same height of the fence. The tallest truck that Thayer operates is a dump. It's 9 feet. So it would be not visible if operating on this, on the inside of that fence. The operations, the setback, the closest, a series of material bins that are identified along the westerly side of the barn, and then along 3 on the westerly side of the land care yard. The closest point to her property line is 49 feet. And that there would be 6 concrete bins, 30 feet by 13 feet. This would be for stone dust, other materials like that. Composting and mulches would be stored on this side, on the westerly side, much closer to the Josh Oldfield dwelling. There are currently 4 shown on the existing conditions plan. There are 4 sprinklers located, not on this plan. There are 4 sprinklers currently located proximate to this area. They would be moved to corners of the material bins, be used in dry and hot weather, and turned on at least 15 minutes per day, 3 times a week, weather permitting, weather as required. There was consideration, discussion with Ms. Lepore about perhaps using this area for idle for parking of equipment when not in use, so overnight. That was a concern. And so the proposal is to move that to here, to the easterly side of the tool shop, on the side of the wood barn. It would only be used to park vehicles when not in use, overnight or during the day when not in use. So, Josh, I think those were the areas of concern. Pam, I'm not sure if there was anything else that was discussed or considered, but certainly as I sat back with Josh and heard what I understood to be the concerns, we wanted to adjust the plan as much as possible to mitigate the impacts. This actually is probably better than showing it.
Except that this has pictures of what you expect it to look like. Existing and stuff. Your choice.
There are, let's see. So with respect to that, those are really the significant changes. I can go a little bit more into detail on and I did provide in the materials 3 separate smaller components of this, so I guess we can walk through. So, again, the area that we're calling the land care yard shows more clearly what I just provided. Identifies on here, there are 4 sort of significant spotlights with respect to lighting. One on the corner of the barn, one on each side on the peak of the gable of the garden shop, one on the shed, one on, this is 5, and one on the barn itself. These 2 face into the area where Christmas trees are generally staged. These face into this area. They are 1,000 watt spotlights. The lighting plan that we provided shows that from a candle perspective, most of the light dissipates before it gets off the property. That just means that they don't provide much use beyond a certain point as you get out to the property. But they are highly visible and can be seen much larger distances. So the proposal is that we will adjust the direction down. There are some aftermarket hoods that can be purchased that would be acquired and installed, and that they would be turned off by 10 o'clock at night. I think, as I understand it, just talking to Josh and Maggie, Josh prefers to see things lit up from a security perspective at night and whatnot. Probably detracts deer to some degree, but it certainly, that's an easy condition to live with. If you live Rowan, Henning, Stevens, or Before whoever, you ought not to be able to read in the bathroom at night without use of your own lights. With respect to the east side, there's really no change that's been proposed from what was previous. We proposed a fence across across the easterly line, 30 feet in from the Rowe-Johanning property line, running essentially from there's a deer fence here, coming southerly. The topography, it's interesting on the lot, and we'll get more into it next time when we really discuss the drainage, but the topography of the area sweeps down from the Blue Hill. At the I think at the corner, the southwesterly corner of the property at Forest Street, the elevation is 196. When it gets off the property on the east side, the elevation is dropped to about 182. So there's a 14-foot elevation change just in the gradual direction, and it goes in that direction, and that's historic. It's been like that for a long time. Forest Street comes down the hill, everything comes down with it, and everything goes to the northeast. So there are elevations as you get out into this area. At elevation 184, it drops, there's a little swale, it drops as 182, and then it's further down and back to 182. And then as you go off the property, this line on the Johanning Coal is 182, it drops to 180, and it drops further in their property. The notion is that at this point, at 184, we'd install a 10-foot tall fence, such that the top of the fence would be at elevation 194, which would be 12 feet above 182 elevation at the Rowan Johanning property line. So essentially 12 feet visible height barrier here. In addition, you'll be removing approximately 10,000 square feet of fairly impervious material. You recall from the aerial photos, this is a very hard-packed, dense area. That's going to be removed and replaced with nursery stock, grow-out area that's similar to what exists on the northeasterly and the northwesterly quadrants of the property. This will be changed out with a softer material as well, so it'll be less pervious, more pervious, and less prone to dust and whatnot. There are 4 or 5 sprinklers currently in this area. Those sprinklers will remain in effect, and again will be operated in the same way as the sprinklers here, weather requiring at least 3 times per week for 15 minutes at a time. The Oldfields have met with the Coles, and they've agreed on a set of infill of evergreen here. They did not want a fence. They agreed on an evergreen infill. And they're proposing additional evergreen infill as well, both on either side of the fence, as shown. Finally, with respect to parking, with the exception of the occasional event, Christmas tree sales and holiday festival, there's almost no need for parking. I've been there now a couple of dozen times, and when I'm there during the day on weekends, I'm often the only person there. My car's probably often the only vehicle that's there doesn't belong to the property. That's not to say that on weekends there may be a reasonable stream of customers coming in to order or purchase materials, whether it's firewood in the winter, whether it is landscaping materials, mulches and whatnot during the spring and summer. But it's a pretty low volume. What they sell is in occasional sales. So we're proposing a total of 16 parking spaces to meet whatever that customer demand might be. 13 as you enter the site, 10 along the right-hand side, 3 parallel to the driveway, and 3 more, numbered 14 through 16, next to the greenhouse. 17 through 24, which are in the greenhouse and in front of beyond the opening to the wood barn, would be for employees. That's more parking space than is needed for the employees, because many of the employees carpool together. They don't all arrive with their own vehicle. Most of them comes in 2s and 3s and 4s. So there's an adequate number of spaces there. And then 25 through 34 would be available, as I said earlier, for the off-hour, for the parking of vehicles and equipment when not in use. Smaller equipment, bobcats and whatnot, would be parked inside the barn. Occasionally trucks would be parked inside the barn. The interior of the barn is almost 3,300 square feet. It's a large, open barn. It is made of concrete. The side walls are concrete up to about 8 feet, steel members, and then wood on top. So, for example, when a load of firewood comes in a large 18-wheeler, if it comes from Vermont and arrives midday, if a truck were to come in and back into the barn and offloaded, a full load would take up about 10% of the floor area when pushed in. So if 2 or 3 loads are present, there's a significant amount of open area within the wood barn for parking, for storage, for operational things. So as I described, for example, in the firewood operations section, all of the loading and unloading can occur inside the wood barn, where it should be quiet and muffled. We propose, and I gave a spec for 3/4-inch thick rubber matting that would be installed in the beds of their dumps. It's actually good for maintenance of the dumps. It's something that they will do, and that will significantly muffle the first 1 or 2 loads of firewood that would be loaded into a dump truck if it were done inside the barn. Those are the same materials you see in hockey rinks, in weight rooms, in gyms. They are highly, they can withstand a significant amount of punishment. They absorb a lot of energy and muffle sound. So that's an overview of the physical conditions that we propose for the property. I can start through the descriptions, more of the narrative descriptions of the plans. Are open to questions to the board. 5 after 8, almost 10 after 8, if you want to entertain questions on what's here, if you'd like me to proceed, however you'd like me to proceed until 8:15 when you walk into your
Given what Mr. Prondak had said earlier about quantities, I don't know that you've had a chance to discuss that with your client next, but certainly for the next meeting, having an idea of the turnover rate and the quantities that would be required would be useful for our discussions.
Yeah, we did provide
And I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to go through all the materials.
Oh, that's fine. We did provide a schedule of average deliveries by material, by size of truck, by the number of trucks. For example, firewood on a weekly basis. For example, firewood during the hive season. They receive 4 truckloads per week. So less than 1 a day. Most of the firewood comes from Vermont. We provided a copy of a letter from one of their suppliers, the forester, under Vermont Environmental Law, Act 250 as it's known. They are not allowed to leave their premises in Vermont before 7 o'clock in the morning. That means that they cannot get to the nursery until midday, and they are in and out and gone. I do have, and I can show later, access to a YouTube video of how these trucks operate. They're actually very quiet. They discharge in small quantities at a time. As it's sort of pushed out the back of the truck, there's no loading and dumping mechanisms. It's very quiet. So, as they said, they would pull in, back in, offload. I think that the operation takes about a half hour or so to offload. It does take a little bit of time, but it's very quiet and out.
And you have the capacity of those trucks, so you know how much firewood.
We know we know the volumes of all of the materials that they've received on an annual basis.
Okay.
What I don't know, and we'll check, is more clearly is the turnover, what's the outgo on a daily and weekly basis. But we do know how much is received on a.
Okay.
That would answer some of the questions. I'm not sure it isn't in here because as well I didn't review it. But again, it would be a good idea to know what you'd like to have as a maximum allowable limit of each of these materials. Because, you know, if you say we get 3 deliveries a week, well, like you just said, I don't know the outflow, so how much does that back up? Do you call off deliveries, or, you know, when you hit a maximum amount of firewood, mulch, stone dust, etc. I mean, I think that plays into what Mr. Pronick said. I mean, how is he going to decide whether it's over or under if we have no maximum limit at any one time on the site?
No, I think Joe's comments were, many of them were well taken, and they took careful notes.
What about facilities for employees?
There are, excuse me, bathroom in the garden shop, and there's a bathroom upstairs in the office above the garden shop, and those are available for employees.
I guess with the east side, when you put in the fence and there's a 30-foot buffer, if you will, between the fence and the property line, and we did walk out there, I'm trying to recall, is there a swale there that'll catch the flow, the runoff, which will then send it out to...
Yeah, when we get into the drainage details more specifically, on March 4th, I guess it is, there is a swale here, and in fact, I think I showed them a photograph, and I have them, we go back after, where they built a retaining wall along this side and widened out here, so that it is quite a depression between what's on this side and this side. The low point at 182 is down in here, comes back up and
So
over.
as you run down that line, within their property, there's a lower elevation
Yes.
than on the property line of your butters.
Correct. And there's a separately, there's a natural low point, the full-size plan. This is the natural low point, 184, 182, 182 again. This is lower than 182. This is quite a large area, and so it's possible to design the adjustments to the drainage to bring it here, detain it, and then been working in conjunction with the town DPW yard to tie into the town's drainage
In
on
the
that.
surface runoff, the intention of the drainage plan is to be caught in that swale and send it out to...
Right, and except in unusually high rain events, it should be pretty well contained, and would be, there'll be some stormwater separators in there to catch it, clean it before it goes in. They're working on a plan to jack a pipe underneath the wall, because there's a historic stone wall along here. They go under the wall and tie the catch basin just opposite Harlem Street.
And then where does it go? Does it go down to Cooks Brook?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
2 questions then. One is on that, would there be any treatment in that?
Yeah.
So the scepter or something?
Right now, we're proposing a catch basin with a row of Caltex underneath, and I had a brief conversation with John Thompson, the engineer, and we're looking to sit down next week and discuss the overflow connection as well. and what storm event they're looking to handle. Right now, we've designed it for a 25-year storm and buffer the peak flows. I haven't analyzed the 100 yet, but we can certainly see what that does. But a lot of the stormwater questions will be answered next week.
Okay. And just a quick question, on this driveway to the right of what you said was Josh Oldfield's house, I think it was originally here for purposes of storage of equipment off hours?
No, we had, one of the conversations that Josh had with Pam Lepore was the notion of a set of parking spaces here for the storage of equipment. And I think that was problematic, and so we looked at moving it over here.
So what's the purpose of that driveway now? Is there an ability to eliminate some of that, or this part, just this portion?
Yeah, this is still available to them for purposes of some nursery grow out, some storage of small pieces of equipment like plows, off-season storage. They have 2 snow plows. They do plow snow, but they only have 2 plows. And so a couple of plows, Bobcat equipment, not the Bobcats themselves.
Okay.
So if not stored in here because it's not seasonal room, just over here in a shielded area. The fence does come beyond there, would not be visible, and it wouldn't be any operations going on. But this is not proposed to be a live operating theater, if you will. It's intended to be quiet storage with some nursery grow out.
Okay. Now, the planning board has to determine, we're going to go to the continued Falcone hearing, and we're going to take that to conclusion.
We're going to continue this?
What?
We're going to continue the Thayer.
Well, the question is, should we continue this to March 4th, or should we continue it to after the Falcone hearing, knowing that we would have to spend at least an hour to make it worthwhile to make people wait?
Stay through that?
My own feeling is that we should continue it to March 4th, but if people would like to resume after Falcone taking we don't know how long it will take, but take a chance that there'll be some extra time there.
Yeah, my only hesitance to not continuing till later tonight is that we have people in the audience who probably want to speak to it. If they have a reservation that can be answered at March 4th, it would be nice to get it out tonight and get a resolution to it. But that's...
We could ask how many people want to speak tonight, and then that would give us
do they
an
want to
idea.
stay?
And do they want to stay? Yeah, I think
I mean, we
that's a
can-
reasonable question. So would they rather come back March 4th? But I agree, we should.
It's fine, I'm okay with that. I think that's a great solution.
Okay.
There's no limit on the time for the Falcone hearing.
No.
I think we should go to March 4th.
Well, I do too, so,
Should we-
what?
We're just saying we should check in with the people who have come to speak and see if
Well,
they're-
we know that,
if
we
they would rather
know
wait
at
or-
least 3 people want to speak,
Right.
and I think they're going to want to speak at some length. 4 people.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, it's an incomplete application, so I think it probably makes sense for him to complete the application, his presentation, and then, so I think we're fine with waiting till the 4th, if whatever worth that is.
That's worth a lot. I mean, that's what we're gauging. Do we make you sit here for an hour? And I mean, if you're happy coming back on the 4th, I think we're happy with having you come back.
Things that may be questioned tonight by the people that speak may be answered by March 4th.
That's right. That's right.
If I may, I think it would be very helpful for the process to continue back tonight, to go through quickly the materials that were presented, to see whether or not there are questions that need to be answered, so that we have the ability to respond to at least questions that arise on the 3rd, and then move forward from there on the evening of the 3rd. I think, if the Falcone hearing goes later than reasonably expected, then we can revisit the issue at a time certain. But I would request that the board, you know.
You have to remember that you gave this material to the board yesterday, 2 days ago,
Tuesday night, yep.
tonight.
But
But asking the board to formulate all its questions without having read it on the basis of a précis that you advance is not going to bind the board.
Understood.
I mean, I did not receive my materials until last night, and I had an evening meeting, so I didn't receive them till late. You know, I didn't get them till I got back. So I have not had a chance to, I mean, I flipped through and saw that you sent us materials, but I haven't had a chance to review them. So,
I will leave it to the board's discretion. I think it would be helpful to have some level of presentation tonight, but I would,
Well, I mean, the convenience of the people who are here is I don't know how long Falconia is going to last, but I think it's going to last for an hour, at least, or an hour, possibly. That'd be 9:20, and then going another hour would be 10:20, and
how much time would you need to go through the materials?
I think I could go through the materials in about 15 minutes, and then we could just go through very basic descriptions. I think they are, I tried to do it in a very simple, easy-to-follow format. Highlight the specifics of what we've got. I appreciate completely the difficult situation that we put you in, like delivery of material, and I accept full responsibility for that. Having said that, I think that a brief overview of what's in it can help inform a little bit your own review of it, and then if there are any immediate questions that pop, then certainly those are things that we can be prepared to respond to.
all right, let's, Mr. Dunn, what do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah,
I mean, you're asking.
the 4th or later tonight?
I think the 4th makes sense.
I think the 4th makes sense, too.
For an hour to, you know.
I don't, anyone contrary-minded?
I mean, if it's only 15 minutes, I don't mind waiting, but I don't want people to have to sit and wait for an hour
I
or
don't,
two.
I don't
That's a
see how
problem,
you
yeah.
can summarize I mean, you saw Mr. Pondek going through the zoning. He took more than 15 minutes, and he just raised a few.
He was very comprehensive. I also don't want to delay Falcone any longer because they've already waited.
All right,
beyond
we're
their
going to, I think that I have a feeling and a sense of the board that we are going to continue this until the 4th. At what time, Bill?
You have a zoning hearing at
7:30?
6:45, so 7:15, I think is what you said.
Okay,
I think it said
7:15.
30,
yeah.
sorry.
7:15, and we will
7:15.
spend some time here, or then, some time here then.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Now,
Now.
in the event of requesting, making them wait 3 or 4 more minutes, could we have a 3 or 4 minute break for the planning board, since this could be an hour or longer?
I think that's
We
reasonable.
we can take a 3 or 4, if
I'm not
we
leaving.
understand that at 8:30 we're going to resume.
Hey, I'm happy to room at
And we
8:27.
only need 3 members for this one.
Thank you, Joe.
I move we take a minute, a break till
We're
8:30, please.
recessed until 8:30.
Excellent, thank you. I'll be back.